flat, we're open, we're diversified. We've got all sorts of industry around here, all sorts of agriculture.
You don't invite the oil company. All of a sudden they just show up.
We've had lots of spills, everything. So you're fighting these companies to clean this stuff up constantly.
Well, the oil patch still carries a cowboy image because you've got minerals and you want to produce that oil and you want to build your company.
It's our livelihood, this land. We take care of it. We're stewards of the land.
The barn was, and the windmill. And any of the red buildings are the original ones from about 1919. So they're coming up to 100-ish years. This is a family farm. It was my grandfather who homesteaded it. It's now been 106 years that this farm has been in our family. Things have changed over the years. We have kids and grandkids, so we hope there's a fourth and fifth generation, willing and able to carry on with the farm. For 65 years now, there has been oil activity in the near area, but it was kind of across the road from the 50s on. It was always an arm's reach away. Prior to the industry coming to our back door, it was peaceful, quiet. It was very serene.
You don't invite the oil company. All of a sudden they just show up. It's always meant oil patch. You would see people here working for an oil company or farmers, and then their children would take over the farm. Now you don't see that so much. I've been in the oil patch since 1968. Still have a farm. My family actively farms in the RMs of Newcomb, Kindersley, Winslow, and Oakdale. The 80s is when the oil patch really took off.
The first thing that went up was my repair bill. And you'd think that's strange, but with all the heavy traffic and the ruts, and you can only go around stuff so much for so long, you have to cross it, and stuff breaks.
You catch them. If they go off the road and they happen to go into the field on a muddy day, they don't care. They just make ruts in your field.
And the sad part of it is as soon as you have an issue with them, the first thing that happens is they show up with their checkbooks. What's it going to cost me to fix this problem?
Usually non-disclosure is generally always tied to the money. And cut them a deal and say, but don't tell anybody that we paid you this, and then we're going to clean this up. And so you have kind of a psychological thing there, because you're a farmer and you own the land, and it's just a bit of a troublesome thing that you have no, relatively speaking, you don't have any say in them showing up and coming in and drilling on your property. And the government wields a lot of power in that area because it is the government that has the minerals, which indirectly is all the people in the province.
It's gone from a few to thousands of wells within this RM.
Farming was tough back then, so money talked, and they just let oil companies do whatever, put a well wherever. Nobody knew what the leases. They just signed on the bottom line. Dad would let him do anything for money. And now I'm paying the consequences of all the problems. Access roads, power lines, the machinery's got bigger, and we're farming around all this stuff now, and it's total a headache.
Now, once a company gets the rights, they are obligated to do certain things, and usually that involves developing the right drilling wells or exploring for it.
So every time a company pays for a mineral lease and then pays royalties, literally the province and all people in the province reap a benefit. So you can't stop them. For some farmers, they don't mind at all. Other farmers, they don't like it one bit.
We've had lots of spills, pipeline breaks, wells leaking oil, tanks overflowing, injection wells, everything.
You know, the safety land, other than the traffic coming in and out of the wells as they do, the other thing is the pipelines, and you know, flow lines don't last forever.
I was in Red Deer working, and I came home and the whole field was flooded with salt water.
Any environmental disturbance like that has to be reported to the provincial government, to the Department of the Environment and Energy and Resources. It has to be reported, so it is open to public.
And it was a steel line that went from the well 3 of 13 to the 8 of 14 battery. And then they turned 3 of 13 into an injection well, but they didn't run a liner. Sooner or later, that salt water is going to eat out that steel line. In the Operator was driving by it every day and couldn't figure out where the water was coming from. So basically this is how I found it when I came here in 2004, except the water was bubbling out. So the salt water had to start at the pipeline for sure, 7 feet down. Well, they surveyed it's 20 acres, 980 cubes of salt water, and hauled it away to the disposal.
If there's an incident or spills or things like that, you know, we're after it right away, and so's the company.
They put some panels around the hole and 15 piezometers in the ground to check how far the spill or if it's moving.
In the case of agricultural land, you got to reclaim it back to the ability to grow crops. So that usually takes 3 to 5 years.
Why isn't it cleaned up? Why haven't people even come out to look at it?
Doesn't mean we don't have some problem locations where there's some severe contaminations. Those are still under our care.
Ground turns white and it won't grow nothing. But you can see where the salinity has went. There's no use seeding it because it won't grow.
Gas will take the easiest route, so if you're drawing water out of it, it will come into your well, and it goes with the water. So it has been interesting, and the sad part of it is the people that were supposed to be monitoring that on behalf of the company weren't. They didn't care. Well, it's not hurt nothing, it's just farmland. But this well, it's a directional drilled, and it is actually, the well center, I do believe, is underneath my barn. I do believe it's still an active well. They can just come and open it up and turn it on. But it does go through our water supply zone. You know, we have a different water supply, and we don't drink our water. We get bottled water. And we did have issues. We got gas into the house, where at one point in time, the gas was so bad, if you open up the kitchen sink, the tap of the sink, and threw a match into it, you could get about a 3-foot flame. We complained about it and talked to the oil company for a few years. Well, we brushed us off. Well, you know, we were imagining things. It's just air. It's just a lot of things. And finally, with that same company, we found a guy that would listen. Bring a gas meter over, just, you know, for humor me. If it's just air, it goes away. And it wasn't. And the percentage of gas that was coming over there and was all, well, it was 100% methane, ethane, butane, all the carcinogens that you really want in your house. That guy and the company, they took a very proactive approach from there, and you know, it was a 4-year work in progress after the 7 years of complaining about it. But you know, we come to something that we both have to live with.
There've been all umpteen numbers of spills at that battery. With the smell of that battery, some nights you can't stand it. You'll be sleeping in the middle of the night and you have a window open, it'll wake you up. So you're fighting these companies to clean this stuff up constantly. It's our loss of income. It's our livelihood.
You're never ever going to remove that kind of friction that comes between a farmer and an oil company.
They don't give a shit, oh, pardon me. They don't give a damn about the landowner, just get it done.
Well, the oil patch still carries a cowboy image. And anything that's rules are a pain in the ass. And that includes farmers and leases. They're all a pain in the butt.
The next company can be, more than willing to work with farmers.
We just got to get some backbone for the landowners, so we can make the oil companies toe the line.
Farmers that I knew that I used to work with approached me because I had wanted to retire from the oil patch, so that the members have a means of being informed about oil activity, generally what's happening, what connection you have with the government, and what oil companies are generally paying in the area.
What they're trying to do is balance the rights of both parties, the landowner and the mineral owner. The mineral owner to access the rights to develop, and the landowner to be compensated for the use of their land during that period.
Compensation. The second biggest one is when pipelines go through and then they don't come back and do appropriate cleanup. Now, they're obligated under an easement to clean that up, but that doesn't mean they do, you see. It's important as a farmer that you have adequate provincial legislation in place to deal with a company that you can't stop from coming in and parking on your property. One thing that we requested too was to have something like the Farmers Advocacy Group set up here in Saskatchewan. Tremendous thing, fantastic. Oil companies hate it in Alberta, but it's a great thing for landowners. You can go to the Farmers Advocate office with your questions, and they will try and find answers for you, or at least tell you the process that needs to be done.
There was a minister that came out, they spoke and they listened, and from what I understand, that's as far as it went. And they've made proposals, I understand, and they've taken it to Minister Boyd, and it stops.
The government concluded that they wanted to do more consideration of some of the changes based on some of the feedback received. That's not uncommon.
The government got nervous. Now, they probably would tell you, I have responses from them otherwise, but they got nervous because there really wasn't anything in there. It was a positive thing for the farmers of the province of Saskatchewan.
Because the system has grown up and evolved over time, it's pretty significant to change it, and you better change it after careful consideration of its impact on all the parties.
It wasn't entirely a negative thing for the oil companies. They just simply got nervous. It disappeared.
To admit that there's issues and it needs to be updated, but right now I don't know that it's a priority for the provincial government.
Right now, as of today, no decision's been made on when to bring the bill forward again. We've still got some work ahead of us.
Is there any correlation between funding from oil companies to the Sask Party policy legislation?
Now you're into areas that I'm not going to comment on.
Do you know who can comment on that?
I'm a provincial official, and you are asking things that are probably directed to those who are elected. So.
Hi, I'm Virginia Wright.
Our barn will be 97 years old. It's some of those things that my grandfather built. I can remember as a kid, I was 3 years old, with my grandfather walking across the yard, telling me, I wanted to farm, and he was my idol. I just hope my grandfather's looking down and he's proud of what we do, and the way we live our lives, and we look after the land, as stewards of the land. It'd be a sad day for that to leave.
It's my livelihood. It's just what I've grown up with, I guess. If I had my choice, it could go away. I don't want it. It's more of a headache than it's worth.
It's the way it's always been. I understand farmers' attitudes about companies coming and not being able to stop them, but it is what it is. If you don't own what's underneath the ground, that's life.